It is still one of the most popular genres in the world. Let's talk about why science fiction is just that. Hello, everybody. My name is Rob. This is my mom, Karen, and you're watching Books, Banter, and Beyond. Now, I love genres like this because we've done an episode prior where you were big on that genre,
Right.
and then we jump to something like this, and you're just like, nope, no thank you. I'm good. Um, excuse me. But it's actually funny because I don't fully disagree with you there, and we'll talk about why. But science fiction itself is still one of the most popular genres out there. And I think it has something to do with actually your what you told me off screen about not enjoying it is I think it kind of gives that little bit of uncomfortableness to how things are so real in terms of robotics, AI, spaceships, so to
Right.
speak. But I think generally sci-fi gives you what fantasy does too. It gives you a chance to leave Earth and kind of go visit another land. Now, weirdly enough, these lands aren't that far off because, some of them talk about Mars, some of them
Right.
talk about Jupiter, right? So, as much as sci-fi is supposed to be an escape, do you think it's on purpose that maybe these people don't necessarily take us too far from home?
Well, I don't know about that, but have you ever noticed that some of the really great science fiction books that have been written, that some of the things appear to be coming true? It's almost like the writers had this like ability to see into the future and wrote stories around it, from Hal and the computer, and I mean, look what we have going on now. So, and I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm actually not making a judgment on it. However, it is a little
No, it's
creepy.
actually funny because we did the video on 2001. Still, it's my all-time favorite, and for many reasons. But I think what I love about that one is that it is so true to the safety of your well-being. It's not so much to say, hey, don't expand. It's just saying if you're going to expand, just make sure you are in control of what you're doing and don't kind of just let it do its own thing. And again, I know you love AI. I know a lot of people that use it. So again, I have nothing against AI personally. It's still a little weird to me because I'm just like it's a little awkward. But I do see how depending on which side of it you're on, you can either love it or hate it,
Right.
depending, what
That's
you
what
think.
but doesn't that, Rob, with anything?
It's true. That
Right?
is
I
fair.
mean, back in the day when you were, I think, by the time computers, when things were just starting to roll out, and then the internet, we had dial up in the middle of the 90s, and you were already 10, 11, 12, however old you were.
Right.
But all your memory of it being on the internet is, it's
Very annoyed. No,
right. And you got on it and you used it, and because it was always in your world. And so
right.
when those of us who had never had this in our world, and it just all of a sudden showed up, people were afraid. They were afraid that the sky was falling. The internet is going to be the end of the world. Now there are still some that say they were right, that this became, just one of many steps that have led to AI and led to other things. So when I think about stuff like this, I go back in time and I say, change is hard. And
Right.
if we stop creating, which is what
Mhm.
I think science fiction is that it's a fantasy way of creating the possibilities of what ifs. Only your imagination is the limit.
Well, it's funny you say that. I'm going to get a little nerdy here because I'm a big proprietor. It's called the Ancient Alien Theory. And I was actually watching an episode of it the other day, and they talked about how Steve Jobs, when he did what he did,
Hmm.
it was so out of the blue that it almost seemed like it was extraterrestrial in a way because even he himself has been quoted saying, I just kind of had this thing one day, woke up, and boom, the iPhone was created.
Right.
And it does make you think because, there's people like Tesla who, with the electricity. So there's a lot of people that do think I'm one of them, that there is definitely some sort of missing puzzle piece as to how we learn how to do this.
Hmm.
And I think science fiction gives us a choice as to how it does it. Now, again, they do use a lot of, alien stuff in this. They do use a lot of, time travel. So there could be something there. And like you said, we don't know the implications. And even though it doesn't seem like we can do it, the perfect example is Einstein actually said time travel is legitimately real. But he also said if you do it, the body can't handle the pressure.
Right.
So
Right.
he proved that time travel, which is supposedly fake, actually isn't, right? So the examples that I have, and again, I did this, I hate this book, and I'm going to say that people are going to hate me for saying this, but I did this because it's so popular. It's Frank Herbert's Dune. Now, I know people are going to go, oh my God, I'm going to stop watching you now because you said you hate Dune. Um, it's a, what I will say is it gives me Star Wars vibes, right? Dune is definitely a Star Wars esque style book. And I'm sure anybody who's seen the movie or read the book knows what Dune does very well, even as much as I dislike it, is it does give you a culture and a religion. It basically teaches you all the aspects of the caste system, of hierarchy, rulers versus the lower class. And Dune does give you a world that basically makes you feel like your own. You have the leaders, which equal the presidents, right? You have the lower levels, which would be kind of the poor, impoverished. You have the middle class that are basically, the you and I, the people that do the work, they go home, the blue collar, whatever you want to call it. So, as much as it pains me to have to say, it actually is a very good example of why sci fi is so popular because Herbert was able to encapsulate our life into another people's life. I don't know if you've read it or watched it,
I
but
haven't, but I'm this question. I have to. Why don't you like Dune?
it's more so the length. It's more so the fact that this guy literally, like he sat down for an entire year, just wrote a book, and then just disappeared, and that was it. Like he wrote Dune, and he was done. He goes, "All right, I gave you a book that's 1,000,000 pages long. I've done my work. Go." Um, it's partially a joke. It's a good storyline. It's a like I said, it's a Star Wars style story. It's a very good long thing. I have a problem, like when they continuously make video movies out of it. I lose all purpose for it because I'm just like I don't need to see that. I don't need to sit down. We talked about Lord of the Rings, the same type of thing. The movies were well done, but it was 3 hours long. I don't have the capacity to sit and do that. I don't want to. I really have better things to do than to do that. So I'm kind of joking. I don't hate it as much as I think I do. But as far as a science fiction story goes, as to why sci-fi is so popular, this is probably the number one book you will go to because just like 2001, just like Star Wars, just like Star Trek, it makes an entire civilization, it
Right.
makes an entire world
Right.
to it. Now, on the flip side, we have William Gibson's Neuromancer. And if anybody's familiar with the cyberpunk or the steampunk, basically the definition of that is taking a classic genre like fantasy or sci fi and turning it into this kind of grunge heavy metal thing. So instead of having, laser guns, these guys are walking around with like, spikes on their vest, these really weird looking guns. And it's basically kind of like if you mixed I don't know, Metallica with Star Wars and you dress them up like that, that's kind of what the cyberpunk deal is. So what this one follows, he's a computer hacker because why not? Who basically goes on a mission and finally and realizes he can't tell the difference between reality and fiction. This leads me to, and you know the story I'm sure well, the Blade Runner story, where you have a character who really doesn't know what he's doing because he can't tell what's made up. He can't tell what's real anymore. So Neuromancer gives you the best form of sci-fi in terms of what is real. And this goes back to what you were saying is, are these books kind of predecessors to what we're doing, like the internet, like rockets, space travel, right? So these are just two, and again, these are two of many. If you go on Google, you're going to find a whole list of popular. But these are two very different stories, but they both give you, to my viewpoint, why sci-fi is so popular for billions of people throughout the world.
So, do you think that science fiction influences public perception of these
Oh
technologies?
yeah,
I mean,
I mean, again, like I said, things like AI. I have no idea how the hell it works, but it works, and it makes jobs easier, right? But it definitely it does, but I think it also separates people in a way that maybe it shouldn't have, because, like you said, you have people that love it and are like, oh, let's keep going. But then, like you said, back in the '90s, you had people that are like, oh my god, we're all going to die because the internet is here.
Right.
It kind of it separates, unfortunately, in a way that you do end up getting these kind of like clashes of, oh, this is good, oh no, this is bad, what do you do? But again, and we talked about this when we were talking about the history books, if you sit down and you kind of, I don't know, make a good judgment on what it is, you should be able to properly think about it, I guess. I don't know. Does that make sense? I think if you give yourself a minute to understand what you're reading, it may not be as harmful as it sounds.
Right.
I don't know. It's kind of a weird question, because I think it unfortunately does more harm than good, but it could do more good than harm if done correctly. I don't know. It's a very
Well, so what role do you think these elements play in addressing, contemporary social and political issues within science fiction narratives? I mean,
I think that's the second half to this first question. This is where I do not envy being a president or a ruler, because they're the ones that are dealing with this, and I'm like, good for you. Just make the right decision. I do not want to have your job. Thank you. Um, it's hard, and again, I think you said this on this episode and ones before. I think it's the matter of everything's going to have a good and a bad side to it.
right.
It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to ever make everybody happy. You just kind of have to have the majority on your side, I guess.
Right.
And when it comes to science fiction, it's hard. It's not so much, should we build a spaceship? That's not really the question. It's, what are we actually doing with that thing?
Right.
And that's where I find it difficult to answer yes or no, because I
Right.
don't know what.
Right. Right. And it goes back to even though we talked about it in terms of historical books, the human decisions, right?
Oh yes, there you go.
So in this, I think it also speaks to, in terms of moving forward, and how does this talk to socially and political issues, is that this is right in there. I mean, totally right in there.
Right, and I mean, it's not to deter anybody from reading science fiction. I think it is a very good genre generally, but I think you just, and again, this is for anything, whether it's a trigger or not. You just have to kind of go into it knowing what you're reading about.
Right.
I always say go to like a Goodreads and read the synopsis first, kind of get an idea of what it is. Make sure it's something that you want to read, because if
Right.
you don't want to read it, you're not going to read it. But make sure you get what you're getting into, and
Right.
if you really don't like what the theme is, just pick something else. You don't have to pick the popular.
Right.
Just pick a story that resonates with you, I think. And that's kind of what these episodes are all about, right? It's
Right.
resonating with you. Read a story that makes you either smile, think, or maybe both.
Or escape in some cases, right?
Or escape, exactly.
So we want to send people over to the store, because you have fantasy books and science fiction books, and you have everything in there. And it's a used bookstore, so the prices are amazing. Take out your camera, scan the QR code for the paperbacks and hardbound, take you right in there. But if you're more of a comic book kind of person, scan that one in the middle. And of course, don't forget, we have merchandise. We have our merchandise.
I love these shirts. They're so comfortable.
And they're soft. They're very, very soft.
Oh, they are. I know, right?
So, Rob, as always, it's been fun. We encourage you guys to let us know if there's a book you want us to review or a topic you want us to review. Let us know. Send in those requests, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.